Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo. Yes, it's done. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Upavishtam darbhamayam Upavishtam darbhamayam Brisham yam brahma sanatam Brishyam brahma sanatanam Naradhaya pravochantam Naradhaya pravochantam Pritchate shrinvatam satam Pritchate shrinvatam satam Upavishtam darbhamayam Mataji? Upavishtam, seated. Darbhamayam, made of dharba, made of dharba straw. Brishyam, on a mattress. Brahma, the absolute truth. Sanatanam, the eternal. Naradaya, unto Narada. Pravochantam, speaking. Prichate, asking. Shrinvatam, listening. Satam, of the sages. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all the present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Purport. The Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narada, a celebrated devotee. Narada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva understood the subject matter of devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor and the great sage Narada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of the Vedic knowledge is bhakti, or devotional service. Srila Prabhupada ki. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnutāya Karmastaya Buddhadeshan Ratan Truna Swami Tanamnana Prabhupada Vijaya Jagannath Yatanandamati Bhaktu Sukhena Krishna Kirtaniya Smaharakshtanamha Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Mukam Kuroti Vachalam Pangulam Gayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram. So, in this verse, it's mentioned that they were sitting on a mattress of durba grass, right? Durba grass is one of the holy grass. There's 5 main grass or straw types that is used in puja. And of the 2, the top best is kusha and durba, depending. And so just in this connection, we know, and for those who do puja or any kind of ritual, they know the importance of sitting on a kushasana. A kusha mat, or a place of worship, is one of the things that protect you during your puja and purify you. Therefore, we have the mantra, right? Prithvi tvaya dhrita loka devitam vishnadhrita tvam chadhari mam nityam pavitram chasanam kuru. So you're asking Mother Earth and you're asking the asana to please protect you and keep you pure and keep your mind pure while performing puja. So this mentality we can use wherever we sit while we do any kind of ceremony. We can ask Mother Earth, we can ask the place, which is non-different from Lord Balaram, because he represents everything that's used in the Lord's service, to please protect us in our devotional service. So when we sit down to chant japa in the morning, you can ask your asana, your red mat, you can ask to please help us. It's just one more thing that's conducive in our devotional service. Yeah, anything that's used in devotional service or can help us, we should take advantage of. Right? Anything and everything, right? As Mahaprabhu says, that good advice, or how would I say, the holy name can be heard from anyone and should be taken from anyone, should be understood, should be accepted from anyone. So in the same way, good advice and help should be taken from everywhere. Not that the asana is a lowly object or something of a low standard or impure, but we should take the help where we can get it. Yeah? So that was just something I wanted to point out in this verse. Another thing in this verse that's spoke about is the importance of hearing and the importance of perfect questions and perfect answers. Thank you for... Right? Perfect questions and perfect answers. As it's mentioned here, the Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor and Narada the supreme audience. Yeah, so I wanted to speak a little bit about the importance of hearing, the importance and the benefit of hearing, and the great personalities who have changed and who have achieved the ultimate goal through hearing. Yeah, so 2 main people I wanted to speak about. One first being, of course, Sri Narada Muni. So in the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, as many of you may know, there's a story of Sri Narada. Yeah, who has heard the story of Sri Narada? How he became Narada Muni, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful story. And we have to understand the importance of the story, because Narada uses it to tell Vyas to do what? He tells him that basically, after compiling all the Vedas, Vyas was still unsatisfied. He felt that something was lacking, something was missing. And so Sri Narada, his spiritual master, came and told him that you have to describe the pastimes, the activities of the Lord and his devotees. Only then will you be fully satisfied, because you would have done your supreme duty. And he uses his story He uses his experience as the example for which Vyasadeva can understand the importance of hearing the supreme subject matter, right? So this story is very essential for us to understand the importance of hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and hearing about the Lord's activities and pastimes. So I'll just briefly go through it and try to point out some important points. So Sri Narada was born in Dvapara Yuga, right? He was born as a lowly son of a maidservant. Yeah, he was born as very poor, and just him and his mother. His father, I think, either died or wasn't present from early age. And so he was very, very, how would I say, simple standard of life. And during one rainy season, a group of Vedantists, it's called in Bhagavatam, but great devotees, they came and they were staying with them during the 4 months of rainy season. That's why we have Chaturmas, Brat, right? During those 4 months, any kind of material activity should be avoided, and one should focus himself fully in the service of the Lord. Especially in India, it's pretty obvious, especially in the south. You're sitting and it's just raining all day, all night, raining all day. So there's nothing else to do. Why not sit and chant? So during those 4 months, they stayed in the house of Narada Muni and his mother, and he had the great opportunity to perform some service for them. He would prepare their meals. They were just eating simple, and what they had was simple. But he was serving them and was able to listen to them talking for 4 months on the subject matter of the Lord. And by hearing, he was so purified that he began to achieve nishta and ruchi, means his steadiness. He was attached to hearing the subject matter of the Lord just by hearing, right? And then by their permission, one day he tasted the remnants. He had some of their leftovers, and by eating those leftovers, immediately he felt great attachment to the holy name. So one may think, well, we eat Mahaprasadam every day. What's the difference? How come we are not jumping in joy and have great taste for chanting the holy name? Many of us have probably also have the maha of great devotees. And day goes on. By the evening, you forgot. Right? So how come we're not achieving that level of devotion simply by tasting prasadam? And there, it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, right? Ye yatam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamiham. To the extent that you surrendered unto me, to that extent I reciprocate. And so we are still attached to our anarthas. We are still attached to the little things that make us happy in this material world, material things that keep us happy in this material world. And therefore, we are not open to the full extent of the Lord's mercy. There's the famous story of Yamunacharya. He was sitting on the bank of the Ganga, eating Mahaprasadam from Ranganath, and a little piece from his plate fell into the river. And a fish ate the piece of prasadam in front of all his disciples. And immediately the Vahana from Vaikunta came and took the fish. Immediately. And all the devotees are there staring at their own plates with Maha from Yamunacharya. And then they see the fish just went back to Godhead, and they're a little dumbfounded. That's not fair, they said. And Yamunacharya explained that this fish had no attachment. This fish was not against going back to Godhead at this moment. We might think that we're open to go back to Godhead at this very moment, but are we actually? Are we able to give up everything? No, that's why we prepare our entire life. We prepare our entire life for that moment of death to be able to give everything up, to actually be free and fully Krishna conscious. So we are not ready. Right? As Prahlad Maharaj says, are you ready to die today? Are you ready to die right now? How do you know that you're old? Old means you're about to die. Can you say that you're going to die after me? Can you say that you're older than me? No, you can't. We don't know. So we have to be ready. And this fish was obviously ready. And so when he ate the Mahaprasadam, immediately he was uplifted to the supreme platform. While we are attached to our anarthas. And so Narada Muni, he had no such anarthas. He had no such attachments. And so by taking the Mahaprasadam of these pure devotees, wanting to receive that mercy, he was immediately given bhakti. He was immediately given love of God. And so after those 4 months, those sages, when they were going to leave, being very merciful, they decided to instruct Narada Muni in the process of devotional service. Right? In the verse it says, instruct him in the absolute truth. But Prabhupada in the purport talks about how it's devotional service. And in a few verses later, Narada Muni is explaining to Vyasadeva that the same cause of sickness can be cured by the same ingredient given in a medicinal way. Right? So what is the causes of our sickness in this material world? The senses. and the sense objects, our bondage, our attachment to the sense objects. But the same interaction between the senses and the sense object, if they're done for Krishna in the medicinal way, engaging our senses in the Lord's service, is the cure for that same attachment. You have great attachment to eating, eat prasadam. You have great attachment for, doing things with your hands, working, work for Krishna. You have great attachment for speaking, speak about Krishna. You have anything that your sense is attracted to and you have great attachment for, use that in the Lord's service on a day-to-day basis. Not only we think, okay, I have a natural propensity to make money, so I'll use it in the Lord's service, but there's many, many small instances throughout the day that you can engage in the Lord's service. And many times we choose not to. We are hungry in the day, instead of just go looking for some prasadam, take the second to think about that this is the Lord's mercy and I'm engaging myself in the Lord's service. Consciously performing devotional service has 1,000-fold benefit. Right? It's not gyata sukriti, it's full devotional service. So you should take the time during the day that any time you feel your sense pulling you to some area or some object, use that opportunity to engage yourself in the Lord's service. Not just in the broad sense of your life goal, of your career, but also your day-to-day activities. Yeah, as Narada Muni mentioned. So Narada Muni, after the sages left, he began to practice his devotional service, but he was still, in one way, tied down by his taking care of his mother. And so the Lord, being Hari, right, taking away all your attachments, he arranged that the mother was bit by a snake, right? And one way one can think, oh, that's horrible. Why could you do that? But the mother was already liberated and ready to go back to Godhead, having a son like Narada Muni. The mother herself was very devotional and very surrendered. And so she went back to Godhead, and Narada Muni was free to be able to go and travel and be able to dedicate himself fully to his devotional practices. And so seeing that as the arrangement of Krishna, even at the age of 6, he was able to understand that. He immediately went on pilgrimage and walking from place to place, forest to forest. When he was hungry, he found some fruits. When he was thirsty, he drank some water. And then he sat under one tree in one place and he began to meditate on the names of the Lord and the Lord. And immediately the Lord appeared in that instance, immediately appeared, and he saw the supreme form of the Lord. And he was overjoyed with such intense ecstasy that he even didn't see himself or the Lord. But once he couldn't see the Lord anymore, he immediately arose and he was, "Where are you? I can't see you anymore." And so the Lord spoke to him, telling him that he's not going to see him, the Lord. He will not see the Lord again in this life. But after he passes away, then he will be eternally reunited. And so Narada Muni, taking that instruction of the Lord, he continued with his devotional service, traveling and traveling and traveling. And at the end of his life, he gave up this material body and achieved the ultimate, supreme, supernatural. Narada Muni's body is something that is full Satchidananda. It's the same body we have in the spiritual world. But with that same body, he can travel in 1 second. He can be in Golokadam. There's pastimes actually where he's in Radharani's room talking with Radharani while she's getting ready for the rasa dance. He's in her room. That's somewhere where no one can go. He's there. And the next instance, he's in the material world talking with some king. And there's only one Narada Muni. There's many Brahmas, right? Shiva expands into every universe. But in all the universes in creation, there's one Narada Muni. Because he can go to all of them. He can go universe to universe. Anywhere in this material world, he can go. Right? And what's he doing the whole time? Chanting the names of the Lord. And all this transformation, of course we understand that Narada Muni is an eternal Mahabhagavata. He was never was he engrossed in this material world, but for pastime purpose, he was born in this world to give us the example of how to be freed from this material world. And how did he achieve it? By sincere service, right? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena shevaya, right? He rendered service to a pure devotee with full surrender and in a humble state of mind. And therefore, he was able to achieve what they were giving to the full extent. Yeah? So this is the story of Narada Muni. It's interesting, in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about how the Lord says that the service of his servants is greater than his own personal service. Service of a bona fide devotee is more valuable than the service to the Lord. One should therefore choose a bona fide servant of the Lord, constantly engage in his service, accept such a servant as a spiritual master, and engage himself in his service. Prabhupada talks in the purport. Right? So such a servant of the Lord is a transparent. It doesn't say master. It says a servant, Prabhupada says. Such a servant of the Lord is a transparent via medium in which we can receive the proper parampara, the knowledge that's passed down through the cyclic succession, and connect ourselves with the Lord and engage ourselves in his service in the proper humble state of mind, right? Therefore, we will be able to accept everything fully. What is another thing that's stopping us from accepting the instruction of the spiritual master or the devotees or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for that example? Is doubts. Doubts is what's stopping us. Is it really that way? Is it true? Is it imagination? These doubts that arise within our heart, it's our responsibility to clarify these doubts, not to keep them for ourselves. Oh, it's okay. They will go away after some time. No. It's an urgency, right? Sanatana Goswami speaks. He says that this devotional service, if it's available anywhere, go right now and get it right now, he says. There's an urgency. Only if one is greedy for devotional service, it says, with such intense desire, will one be able to achieve it. So one cannot think that, I can leave this for later. I can ask someone later. We should have this sense of urgency to get rid of our doubts so that we will more be able to accept the instruction of the spiritual master and more be able to relish and benefit from our service, from our devotional service. We're performing service every day. We're cleaning every day, cooking every day, eating every day, associating with devotees every day. So why not take full advantage of that and clarify these doubts so we can better understand and better achieve our devotional service in a faster way. Right? Okay. So the other story I wanted to speak about is the story of Yamunacharya. Who knows the story of Yamunacharya? Yamunacharya was the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya. Of course, we all know who Ramanujacharya was. Yamunacharya was the son of one devotee called Ishanadev. He was a Brahmana, right? And at a very young age, I think he was just an infant, his father became a sannyasi. His father left home, being detached from this material world. And so from a very young age, he was raised by his mother and his grandmother. So at the age of 5, his mother put him under the instruction of one great devotee. I think his name was Bhasya Muni or Bhasyacharya. Bhasyacharya, I think, was his name. And he was studying under this great devotee and learning everything about Krishna consciousness. He was so well versed in all the Vedas and very advanced at the age of 6 or 7. And one day, the king sent out a messenger. He had this great scholar in his court. His name was Kolahala, the scholar. And this scholar would defeat any Brahmana who would come to challenge him. And he would go and find Brahmanas to challenge. But the thing was, the Kolahala was so proud that he put this thing that if the Brahmana would be able to conquer him, he would get half the kingdom of the king. But if he was defeated, he would have to drown himself in the Ganga. That was the circumstance, right? And so he would go and challenge Brahmanas, and so many Brahmanas were jumping in the Ganga because of this. Such an aparad he was performing, but out of his pride he couldn't see, right? So he, hearing about the greatness of Yamunacharya's guru, Bhasya Acharya, he wanted to challenge the Muni. And so his messenger came to the ashram where Yamunacharya was and said, "Where is your guru? Where is your master?" Kolahala is challenging him. And so Yamunacharya, understanding the foolishness of this scholar, he said, "No need to bother my spiritual master. I'll come with you. I will defeat this scholar." And the messenger said, "You're just a boy, how can what are you talking about? I'm a Brahmana, you should respect me and accept my word as dharma. Take me." So they took Yamunacharya, a 6-year-old boy, to the king's palace. And everyone was shocked to see this 6-year-old boy full of confidence, brilliant as the sun. And so they sat down, and the king at first was very much against it. He said, "No, you can't challenge the 6-year-old kid. When he loses, not even if he loses, when he loses, he'll jump in the Ganga. You can't do this." But the queen, understanding the personality of Yamunacharya, she even waged herself. She said, if this boy does not defeat this scholar, I will become your maidservant. She said. She was so confident in Yamunacharya simply by seeing him and understanding his purity. So the king finally accepted, and they sat down to challenge, to debate. And Kolahala, being exceedingly proud, he said that, okay, you can start. Generally in a debate, in a scholarly debate, one will propose some fact or some statement, and the other has to either dispute it or defeat it, right? Say that it's not true or say that something else is more true. So Kolahala said, okay, you start. You're junior, so you can start. So Yamunacharya said, okay, I will propose 3 statements, and you try to refuse them. So the first one that he said was that your mother is not a barren woman. A barren woman means one who does not have kids. He says, your mother is not a barren woman. And so Kolahala was stunned. How can I say that my mother is a barren woman? I'm here. If my mother was barren, I wouldn't be alive. So he just stayed silent. Yamunacharya said, okay, if you can't defeat the first one, then listen to the second one. That the king, Rajapadya, is supremely righteous and free from all sin. He said this in front of the king. Kolahala thought, if I say that the king is sinful, he's going to kill me. He's right here. I can't say anything. Of course he's not sinful. So he kept silent. Then Yamunacharya said, okay, even that one you can't refute, so here my third one. That the queen is supremely chaste and has never been with another man. How is Kolahala supposed to refute that and say that the queen is not chaste? So he stayed silent. But then a huge argument broke out. And they said, how can this be? How can he say such things? Either he needs to refute his own statements, or they're considered not proper to be used in a debate. So Yamunacharya calmed everybody down and said, okay, I'll refute my own statements. So he said, first statement that I said was that your mother is a barren woman. According to Manu Siksha, it says that a mother or a lady who has only one child can be considered a barren woman. So therefore, your mother is barren. First statement, done. Second statement, that the king is supremely righteous and free from all sin. According to Manu, it says that the king enjoys 1/6 of all the pious benefit that his subjects acquire. Right? 1/6. So if he's pious, both. Right? He enjoys 1/6. So if he takes care of his kingdom properly, he'll become very pious because he gets 1/6 of everyone's pious activities. But if he doesn't, he also has to suffer 1/6 of their impious activities. So that's kind of the thing that keeps the king in line, according to Dharma. Right? So in that way, because he's also suffering 1/6 of all the impious activities of his subjects, therefore the king is impious. Second statement broken. And he said the third statement, that the queen is supremely chaste and has never been with another man, is false, because the king, within the emperor, there's 8 demigods present. Vayu, Indra, Agni, Kuvera, right? There's 8 main demigods present. And therefore, by being married to the king, the queen's also married to these 8 other demigods. And therefore, the queen is not supremely chaste. Defeated, Kolahala was. Everyone broke out clapping, so happy. And immediately, Yamunacharya became the king of half the kingdom because he defeated the scholar. So, taking care of the kingdom at the age of 6, he immediately became enwrapped in material affairs and material problems, state affairs, wars, conquering, treasury, and time flew by. In no time at all, he was about to be married. I think he was married. And he completely forgot everything. But his spiritual master, knowing that his dear disciple has been taken by this material world and has now completely forgot his eternal duty of going back to Godhead, he sent in his dying wish, he sent one of his other disciples to go and save him. He said, go and find some way to bring Yamunacharya back to the path of bhakti. And so this other disciple, he was thinking how to fulfill his spiritual master's wish. And so what he did was he went to the mountainside and he would find many beautiful and very tasty herbs. on the side. And he would bring it to the kitchen of the king, to the kitchen of Yamunacharya, and ask the cook to prepare this dish for the king. It will be good for his health, and he will live a long life. And so the cook would make this dish. And my God, this dish was so tasty. So Yamunacharya would eat it and be like, wow, where is this from? And he said, oh, some Brahmana just brought it. He didn't say his name. He brought it and left. And so every day the Brahmana was bringing this dish. And Yamunacharya was exceedingly super happy, wanted to give something back. So one day he waited in the kitchen for this Brahmana to come. And so the Brahmana came, and Yamunacharya said, please tell me what I can do for you. And so the Brahmana said, no, I don't need anything for myself, but there is something I can do for you. And he said that your great-great-great-great-grandfather left a treasure for you deep in the mountains. This treasure is guarded by 9 gates and protected by a snake with 1,000 hoods. But if you come, only you can enter, and you'll be able to retrieve this treasure, and it'll be for your ultimate benefit. And so Yamunacharya was thinking, wow, this treasure must be huge. I can use it to, conquer more kingdoms, to finance my expansion of my kingdom, to make a bigger army. So he said, okay, let's do it. How long will it take? And he said, it'll take roughly a month to get there. And so he got ready and he went. He was going to go with his whole army, and the Brahmana said, no, you can only come yourself. Only you can come, and we'll go, and only you can enter and retrieve this treasure. So he went with the Brahmana, walking. The whole way the Brahmana was talking about Krishna, talking about pastimes, talking, just to pass the time, and telling him. 1 day passed, 2 days passed, and Yamunacharya was relishing so much, hearing after so long about the pastimes of the Lord. After 1 week, Yamunacharya said, okay, I don't want it anymore. I don't want this treasure anymore. I remember what I'm supposed to do. I don't want this treasure anymore. And Brahma said, no, you have to get it. This is for you. You have to go get this treasure. Even if you don't want it, you still should go. Yamunacharya, okay, fine, kept listening. Another week went by. I don't want to forget it. I'm going to take sannyas right now and give up this material world. Brahma said, no, you have to see this treasure. You have to. You will see. It's so important. Kept going. He started trying to run away. The Brahmana had to tell him, it's your instruction of your spiritual master that you take this treasure. You have to go. So finally, where did they go? Ranganath. Ranganath has 9 gates and is guarded by a huge Anantashish. And on the 9th gate, he saw the face of Ranganath. And so he fell at the feet of Ranganath and fully gave up his life, fully for the service of the Lord, became a sannyasi. And of course, we know so many amazing things that Yamunacharya did. He was the spiritual master of the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya, or the spiritual master of Yamunacharya. Anyway, so through hearing, he was able to reconnect himself with the Lord, and be able to reestablish his eternal relationship through hearing the pastimes and the glories of the Lord. Right? So Srila Prabhupada also speaks in the purport to the first canto, chapter 5. In one of the texts he says, hearing of the Lord's pastimes is itself transcendental association with the Lord, because there is no difference between the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. Right? So simply by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, or hearing the holy names of the Lord, one is associating with the Lord. And what could be greater than association with the Lord? And what are we missing? Detachment from this material world. To the degree one is disgusted with this material world, to that degree one will remember and be able to associate with the Lord upon hearing the pastimes and chanting the holy names. Right? Only to that degree. To the degree we're able to chant Shuddha Nam and not Nama Bas or Nama Parat, to that degree we'll be able to relish the holy name. To that degree we'll be able to develop taste in the holy name. And so this sense of urgency is needed for us to get rid of our attachment to our anarthas. And only then can we dissipate our doubts and fully accept the instruction of the spiritual master. Right? Srila Prabhupada also said, when he passes away, everything is in his books. There's no difference between Vani and Vapu, the presence of the spiritual master in body or the presence of his instructions. But what's the difference for us? The difference for us is that we only take seriously when we hear it from someone. This, we can be laying in bed reading. We don't take it seriously. We don't understand that there's no difference. So being able to fully accept the instruction of the spiritual master, the instruction of the Vedas, the instruction of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, fully cherish and take advantage of association of devotees. This is the path back to Godhead. And we have so many examples. This is just 2 examples. There's hundreds of examples in Bhagavatam, in the Upanishads, in the Puranas, of people achieving the highest goals simply by association for a short time with a pure devotee. And therefore, one can go back to Godhead. Yeah? And then one might think, okay, well then I have to look for a pure devotee. Who is pure? Oh, he's not pure. I've seen him do this. Oh, he's not pure. He wears his chadar that way. This is something that we have to be very, very careful not to perform. Instructions are pure wherever they come from, right? Chanakya Pandit says that one can take lotuses from a muddy pond, just in the same way one can take a wife from a low family, one can take good instructions from anyone, right? There's also the 5 animals in which one should take instructions, and there are the pig, the dog, the crane, and the crow, right? These instructions that you're able to take from anyone and everywhere, even a low birth or an animal, should be taken fully to heart. So even if low birth animal is here speaking to you, if you're able to accept the instructions, for you there'll be ultimate benefit. Even if for me, I'm simply parroting. Yeah, so you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry that these instructions of the spiritual master or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, I have to look for a pure devotee, only then will it work. No, it's to your degree that you understand it. To that degree, they're beneficial to you. I'm speaking, it doesn't mean I understand it. Right? You may speak to someone else. You may preach on the street to someone, telling them what you've heard from your spiritual master. What qualification do you have? You don't. But the words of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam are supremely qualified and supremely beneficial for everyone. So to the degree that someone's able to hear it, to that degree he will benefit. So be open to the instructions. Be open to the nectar of devotional service, and therefore you'll be able to accept it from wherever it may come. Yeah? Okay. Any questions? Yes, bro.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice points and very happy ending, I would say. Regarding this topic, I was hearing actually a seminar called The 24 Gurus, referring to the story of the Avanti Brahmana, yes, or the Avadhut Avanti Brahmana. Yeah. And this point is mentioned that actually the Guru is not like only the one who is physically present telling us do this and do that, but he's helping us to see the whole world actually as our Guru, as a representative of God. And someone may teach us by his example how to act, how to deal with this world, by his behavior, by his instructions and so on. But sometimes we don't accept this idea because somebody may behave improperly. And then he says, the lecturer of the seminar, he says, somebody teach us how to deal, how to act, and somebody may teach us how not to act.
It might be the same person. Yeah. Yes, bro. Yeah, it's the example. That's why it's so important to have both. To have your Diksha Guru, your Shiksha Guru. They can be the same person, right? But to be able to accept so many people as your Shiksha Guru, to be able to accept instructions from wherever they may come to heart, is a quality that's there as one of the qualities of a Vaishnava, right? Be able to accept good instructions from anyone, right? It's something that we should really try to develop, to not let the physical or to let the first impression or to let some sort of judgment block what he's saying, right? In anger, it's one of the hardest things. I think even Chanakya Pandit talks that one of the qualities of a fool, there's the Murka Shatakam, written by Chanakya Pandit. It's the 100 fools. And one of them is someone who does not allow good instructions to come because of anger or because of jealousy, because of envy. And so you see someone or you're arguing with someone, and even though they have a good point and they're saying something right, because of anger you just shut it off. Or because of jealousy, because of envy, because of judgment, because of criticism. And that's why Vaishnava Pride is so dangerous, because it blocks you out from their instructions, from their help, from everything. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Yes, Sanjay, Prabhu.
I have a practical question about, you spoke about engaging our senses, and as far as I understand, the essence of engaging the senses ultimately is to engage the mind.
Yes.
And then the issue is that sometimes we have to perform our regulated devotional activities, which are bound by punctuality also, and then, let's say, 2 hours before I'm supposed to start my service on the altar or in the whatever kind of service that is in detail, but 2 hours before that something happens to me which upsets my mind a lot, and in such a way that the natural inclination is to think that I have to deal with this, not for a selfish matter, but because, let's say, I have some involvement with some devotees who are quarreling, or I'm quarreling myself, or something like that, and I feel that this is really important. I have to deal with this internally, externally, but I have to, like, how to say? Clean it, tidy it up, and otherwise, who am I to go onto the altar? So, but at the same time, time is there, and we're supposed to stick to the frame. So, what is your understanding and realization about how to be in yoga in that situation, how to relate to the Lord properly, even though, or at the same time when some things are going on which seem to be a distraction from that service?
There's something called, in puja, there's something called Purvanga Karma. Purvanga Karma means the preliminary activities to put one's mind and soul in the proper state of mind to perform puja properly, or to perform worship properly. So to be able to develop for yourself something that works for you before performing any kind of service. It could be, paying obeisances to your spiritual master, trying to put your mind in the proper state, some verse that inspires you, right? Something that will be able to put your mind in the proper state of mind. Of course, there's many verses that are already there in Pancharat or Pradeep, or specifically because you're talking about puja. That's why I'm going that way. That help one put one's mind in the proper state of mind, right? There's Naham Viparunachanarpatir Napi Vaishnava Shudra from Bhagavatam. Putting oneself as the servant of the Dasa Dasanudasa, right? There is Pradashima Navadipe Dinetam Dujam Gurum, right? Placing oneself as the servant of the spiritual master. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, right? Or Jaitam Sruta Pangur. There's so many verses that if one understands the meaning, or studies the meaning by chanting it and in a humble state of mind, one can therefore get out of that very material mindset that you're coming with, whatever it is, right? And so to that extent that you feel yourself engrossed in that, to that extent you have to clean and purify yourself before performing the puja. Of course, if time is a factor, that will be limited, but you should at least endeavor. And so each time you endeavor, that will become better and better and better and better. Not 100% of the time will you be fully conscious of the Lord, but if you endeavor to put your mind at a proper state before entering the altar, before performing the puja, 10th time, the 100th time, the 1000th time, you will achieve it. Understand? So taking the seriousness or the importance or being in the right state of mind very seriously and trying to endeavor to achieve that is something that you should do regardless whether you have a difficulty with that or not. Whether you had a fight with someone or not, whether you have a perfect day, right? Taking that very seriously, that you feel that it's important to be in the proper state of mind, is great, and it's a stepping stone. It's the beginning, right? It's like Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha. There's the first faith that's important, and then you're endeavoring for it. Understand? So if you're feeling already that's disturbing you, that's a good sign. It's not a negative thing. It means that you're conscious of it. Other devotees, they'll go through it, right? I'm not criticizing other devotees, but I'm saying, right? You just go through it without even thinking about it. But if you're conscious of it, that's the first step. Then to nullify that would be to perform something before you have to do your service that would purify that. And ultimately, what will happen is that you'll understand that all these things are material and not important. All these things are very minimal in the broader idea of life, what to speak of the spiritual world, of giving up this life. Right? This momentary distractions or momentary arguments we have between our friends, between devotees, or these, whatever difficulties may arise in the day aren't that important. But in the moment, yeah, they're everything. It's impossible to, just like Arjuna. Right? He's on the battlefield having to fight his family, and he was completely bewildered. But Krishna had to instruct him. Right? So we find instructions, we find verses. For myself, that's what I always feel I do, is that you really try your best to put yourself in the right state of mind. And therefore we have the Puranga Karma, beginning with Achaman. Right? And then that helps us purify the body, mind, and soul, so that we are ready to perform puja. Right? So finding something that works for you. I'm not saying to invent and to find verses. What I'm saying is there's something that you can do, even when you're just going to do offering quickly, instead of just doing a momentary achaman, do something extra. Be it chanting your Gayatri, chanting one round, and really, praying to Krishna, help me put my mind in the proper state so I can think of you and worship you in the proper state of mind. Understand? It could be chanting Sikshashtakam. There's so many things that we can use to help us get that. And so every time you do that, it will help you practice that, forgetting all these material things and focusing on the Lord. And focus is a skill. It's something that needs to be trained. It's not something that you'll gain momentarily. You want to focus for 1 hour chanting japa, it's not easy. You start with 2 minutes, you start with 1 minute, you start with one syllable of the Maha Mantra to be focused, thinking of Krishna. Then 1 Maha Mantra, then 5 Maha Mantras, then 1 round, then 10 rounds, and then all 16 focused, and then go for 64. But it starts one step at a time, Prabhu. It starts one step at a time. So not 100% of the time will you be able to achieve that state of mind, but the fact that you're endeavoring is all that matters. Right? There's that famous verse, Murko variti Vishnaya, Dhiro vavati Vishnave, Ubayosta samam punyam bhavagrahi janardana. The fool says, the Murka says Vishnaya, because he doesn't know. Dhiro, the Brahmana, says Vishnave. He says it properly. Ubhayosta samam punyam. Both get the equal benefit, because bhavagrahi janardana, the sentiment is what Janardana accepts. Means Vishnaya, it means the fool doesn't know how to say it properly, so he says Vishnaya. It doesn't mean, it's just, he's mispronouncing Vishnave, but he says Vishnaya, right? So the fool, he doesn't know how to say Vishnave properly, so he says Vishnaya. But they both get equal benefit, because Bhavagrahi Janardana, that's what the Lord accepts. So your endeavor is what the Lord sees. And so he will help you put your mind in the proper state of mind for puja, because it's your desire. Does that make sense, bro? Yeah. Yes, bro. Thank you.
Yes. You were mentioning the story of Narada Muni, and that later it became obvious that he is an eternal associate of the Lord. Also, Bhagavad Gita says that there are fallible and infallible beings. So my question is, when we start from this fallible side on, do we have a chance to become infallible or even eternal associates of the Lord?
Of course. We may not be able to, or I shouldn't say may not be able to, I should say we may not want to travel between, right? Once we achieve Krishna, why would we want to come back here? Right? But we will be eternal entities, eternal servants of the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan, to whatever capacity that might be to your soul, right? And that is the infallible being, right? Other great devotees, because they're so indifferent, right? Narada Muni, out of his causeless compassion, he comes to this material world to preach, to spread. How many stories in Bhagavatam is there of Narada Muni helping people, right? Mrigadi the hunter, right? All the demons, pretty much, he goes and helps them get killed quickly to go back to Godhead, right? He wants to speed up the advent of the Lord, so he, tells Kamsa to kill all the babies. He tells Ravana to put Shani as his step. You know that story? Mm-hmm. When Ravana conquered everything, everyone, right? He had all the demigods as the steps to his throne. He had the 9 planets, so he would step on their backs going up to his throne. And so Narada Muni, he wanted him to die faster. He wanted him just, Ramachandra should come now. So he told him, you're making them face down. If you turn them over, you'll see the humiliation in their eyes when you step on them. You should turn them over, it'll be more pleasurable. And so Ravana flipped him over, and so Shanidev, just by looking in Ravana's eyes, was able to quickly change everything in his life. Because Shanidev is supremely powerful. Shanidev, because Ravana was so angry at Shanidev, anyway, we're going in a different direction, but Ravana was so angry at Shanidev because when Indrajit was born, Ravana placed all the planets in the perfect positions. In perfect positions, so he could be immortal, supremely powerful and everything. But when it was time for Indrajit to be born, Shanidev, he was the fastest, so he just went to the other side. And it meant he would die at a young age. And so Indra was Ravana was so angry, he cut off Shanidev's legs. And that's why Shanidev is now the slowest. Out of the 9 planets, he's the slowest. And that's why we have like 35 years of Shani, according to astrology. But for us devotees, Shani is our best friend. Right? He takes away our material attachments and engages us in the Lord's service. But Narada Muni, out of his supreme mercy, he comes to this material world constantly. Because for him it's indifferent. It's all the Lord's pastime, it's transcendental. But for us, we may not desire that. Once we achieve Krishna, why would we want to come back? Right? Many people would ask, once you achieve Goloka Vrindavan, do you remember all your lives in this material world? And Prabhupada said it's like a bad dream that you don't want to remember. Right? You don't want to think about it. You remember it vaguely, but you don't want it, Krishna doesn't want it to disturb your service. So it's something that you just forget.
What did Prabhupada say?
It's a bad dream.
A bad dream.
Like a bad dream. Yeah, you remember it just like a horrible nightmare. It was just there, that you were so long separated from Krishna. Right? So that feeling, that remembrance of separation is there, but maybe not all the material instances, right? So that desire to hold Krishna tight and to be close, is the urgency is there, because that's conducive for devotional service. But you will be immortal is not the right word. You will be eternally engaged in the Lord's service. But that only happens once we leave this material world and achieve our Siddha Swarup, our eternal position as the Lord's servant. Something else that's really beautiful that Srila Prabhupada speaks is that every living entity has something unique to offer the Lord. One might think that there's millions of Lakshmi Devis, and there's hundreds of millions of jivas in the spiritual world offering the Lord all kinds of service, but the Lord misses what you offer, what you give. You have an individual capacity to offer the Lord some service. And so He's missing what you have to give. You shouldn't feel just, in one way we feel insignificant because we're just, tiny, but Krishna's missing you, not jivas in general, you, because you give a certain enjoyment to Him. So it's very nice to think in that way, that each jiva and each of us have something special and unique to offer the Lord that He's missing. But He's patiently waiting for us to decide that we want to be with Him again. And so once we get to the spiritual world, we will never want to leave. And therefore, you'll be eternal. You'll be infallible, as the Lord mentioned, right? Like the story of Gopakumar. Right? He was traveling one place, to another place, to another place, to another place, until he achieved Krishna. And when he saw Krishna, right, what did Krishna say? Finally, you're back. Like, his best friend is back. It wasn't like, like something new. It was just, you're back. Right? And only in this age of Kali, only in this Manvantar, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, giving pure love of Godhead, are we able even to change our Siddha Swarup. This is something very exalted, very, very special. If we so desire, we can change our eternal relationship with Krishna, which is something difficult to understand. Right? But it's because only in this time does Mahaprabhu come and give pure love of intimate Gokul, Goloka love of Godhead. Other times it'll be Vaikuntha. Other times it'll be whatever it was before. But in this, because we got that instruction or that information from Siddhartha Mahaprabhu, then we're able to do that. So we should take advantage. Not saying that I take advantage, but take good advice from a lowly person and take advantage. Yes? Does that make sense for you? Yes, Brian.
Thank you for the very nice class. You mentioned in different answers like that is much needed this sense of urgency, and I wanted to ask you about some tips or like how to foster it.
It's basically I like the word foster it. Thank you, Guru. Sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is the way to foster and this urgency. So Pancharatra Pradeep gives us a perfect explanation of every hour and every minute of our day, how we're engaged in the Lord's service. We wake up in the morning. Why do we wake up in the morning? To be clean, to be ready for the Lord's service, to be there for His darshan. So being on time for Mangalarti and that urgency to be on time for Mangalarti, right? Again, take instruction from someone who doesn't come to Mangalarti, but that urgency is already a part of your devotional service. So to practice that taking full advantage of every moment of your day in the Lord's service is something that can already start to make you understand the importance of it. Then once you're already performing it, as many of you are, why not take full benefit? It's kind of like you have, I'm just trying to think of a good example. You have a pizza, yeah? And you could put amazing cheese and everything on it, but you're eating the dry base of the pizza with nothing else. It's all there. You just could add it on and have the best pizza, but no, you're having the dry base. Yeah, but without oil, Prabhu. Without oil, without anything, without salt. You could have it all, but you're not. So you're doing it anyway. You're doing all the devotional service anyway. Why not do it consciously and be fully open to its full benefit? And how do we do that? By diminishing our doubts and being open for it. And so that understanding the importance of devotional service and the benefit of devotional service would also be a stepping stone. Hearing about the importance of devotional service and the glories of devotional service and the glories of the Lord, then you will develop a desire to achieve Him and a greater desire to achieve Him. And therefore you'll do everything you can. Yeah? So that's I forgot who was saying, but they were saying basically, if you have the opportunity to get more benefit out of the same amount of work, why not do it? Right? You're anyway doing it. You're anyway waking up. You're anyway taking a bath. You're anyway chanting. You're anyway. Why do it half-mindedly? Why do it, just because? It will give benefit, but after how many lifetimes, right? Right, like it says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Bahu janma kariyadi shravana kirtana tabutana paya Krishna paya permadana. Many, many lifetimes you can go on chanting the holy name. Right, so take it seriously. Also, there's that other famous song that Vyasaki Prabhu sings. Sadagaye makiyati la Gaura milena nitai nilena bolamol. Right? So you can put tilak all over your body and chant the holy name, but you won't achieve the Lord Gauranga without the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And how do you achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda? He is Guru, by service to the spiritual master, by service to the devotees. Right? Make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, my question is, you were mentioning that no matter what material attachment you have, you can use it in the service of the Lord. But I would love you to point that a little bit, make it a little bit clear. When you're reading and when you're studying, you have association, and more or less you know what is most pleasing to the Lord. So when you know what would be the best for the Lord, but you still have a material attachment, and you can, so why to engage that or do that? So it's not really clear for me where is this the true nature behind, and where do you know it's just an old material thing you can let go?
Well, if it's something you can let go, you should let go of it, right? If you have an attachment to driving fast cars, right? That's something that's not very conducive for devotional service, right? But you can engage it in the Lord's service, as Brian Prabhu will do, right? You're going to be zooming to Yanda's Boon 1,000,000 times during the festival. Maybe he has a desire for driving cars, right? You can purify that desire, and I'm pretty sure by the end of the festival, you won't want to look at a car for a few days. But like you said, it's not the most conducive thing for devotional service. But therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Sakam karma bhakti kukarma yoga, right? So yes, it's not the most conducive. We want to eat lasagna, we make lasagna, we offer lasagna. It's not we're thinking about Krishna. We're offering the lasagna because we want to eat it, not offering the lasagna because we want Krishna to eat it. If we were making lasagna because we want Krishna to eat it, it's pure devotional service. Just because it's lasagna, it's not the problem. Doesn't mean I have to cook, Indian every day. Does that mean that I can't cook Bengali? I can only cook what they cook in Braj because that's what Krishna eats? No. The point is to see what Krishna likes to eat. And Krishna likes to eat things that are offered with love. So if you have great ingredients to make lasagna because you want Krishna to taste your lasagna, not because you want to eat it. So there is the line. You have to understand that I'm still performing this with desire for the benefit, but I'm going to offer it to the Lord so it can be purified. So if you have an attachment for something rather than artificial restraint of the senses, as Prabhupada mentions, right, it's very difficult. Right? Arjuna mentions that to control the mind is harder than controlling the wind. Other place it's mentioned that controlling the mind is like trying to stop a raging river with your hands, with your fingers, just trying to stop the river, stop. It's impossible. So artificial control of the senses would be to artificially try to control some anartha you have just by ignoring it. It's not going to go away. At some point something will trigger it and it'll be very difficult to control. We must purify everything that's coming through us. Right? And some things we purify, like let's say lust for sensual pleasure through Grihastha ashram, we are able to purify through deity worship, by understanding that this relationship within the family is not something that I am doing, but we have Krishna in the family, and so everything we have to wake up because Krishna needs to wake up. We have to offer what we eat, so whatever we cook in the family, we offer to Krishna. He becomes part of the family, and therefore Grihastha ashram is purified through deity worship, and lust is purified through deity worship. So one can say, how is lust? Because he's a person and we see him as a person. And so the physical form is purified. Physical relationship is purified. Because we're dealing with a physical form. You understand? So some things may be, purified in different ways. But we can't ignore some anartha we have and just suppress it. That's not a solution. Either we need to talk about it and clean it in that way, or engage it and clean it in that way. But you can't hide stuff under the blanket. That's basically the point. Yeah. So if you have an attachment for something, find some way to engage it. Right? Or like Pankajani Prabhu once told me that when I was taking initiation, he told me, spiritual life and material life is like salt. You have to put the perfect amount. If you put the perfect amount, then things are tasty. If you put too much, unedible. You put too little, it's tasteless. So you perform your devotional service, oh no, I can't do that. After some time, it's tasteless. It becomes dry. So you need to become purified. And you engage in devotional service. And so whatever attachments you have to be honest about it, reveal them to the spiritual master or devotees, and so you can help engage them in the Lord's service and therefore purify them, to eventually be rid of them. But that's why there's a whole chapter about Gita, about karma yoga. Because we have anarthas, and there's no negating that. We have desires in this material world, and we have to engage them in the Lord's service. Does that make sense, Prabhu?
Yes.
But if you had some specific anartha in mind, then it would be easier to clarify your question.
No, I mean the last one is that's what I'm asking myself often, because how to make or what makes an attachment, not just something in the mind.
Oh, you're saying that if you actually have that attachment or not?
Yeah.
Oh, so then in that way, basically what you would do is that you would try engage yourself in devotional service and see if that goes away. If it's just a passing thought, right? It's the mind is like pictures, basically. It's showing you pictures and your intelligence says yes or no. The mind desires, choice, right? So if it's just a passing thought, it's just something that will go away. But if it's something that keeps coming up, then you have to find a way to engage it. If it keeps distracting you in your devotional service, then you know it's an anartha. If it's something that just comes once and goes away, or comes every, once a year, but if you see yourself chanting and every now and then you say, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, or I have a desire for this, I want money, I want fame, I want glory, I want power. All these things are something, strong on artists that are very difficult to destroy. Not, oh, I wish I had a cool watch. That's something that may go away, maybe not. I know many people are very attached to watches, very attached. So they have a beautiful Rolex on their hand, but someday they'll get rid of it. Someday it won't be important anymore.
And so even the desire for power can be purified?
Of course, Prabhu. You want power? Take charge of the festival. You're going to have so much power. You're going to be able to say, go clean the toilets, go do this, go do that. But you're going to have so much responsibility, your head's going to split. Right? So that desire for power, right, it comes. Many devotees have that desire for fame and power to control. Use it in devotional service.
Yeah, but this seems often so contradictory, because at so many points it is said, no, we should go away from this.
It is. But if you have the desire, then how are you just going to forcibly control it? Understand? There's so many desires in the heart that are detrimental to devotional service, but we have to find some way to engage them, some way to use them in devotional service so that they become purified. And if you cannot use it, then you ask about it. You talk to your spiritual master, I have this intense desire to do this, or this is attracting me. Whatever it may be, for those people who were previously engaged in intoxication, it can be a very strong detachment, right? It can be something that's, just like, go to AA meetings, right? And it's something that's very difficult. But through association of devotees, through speaking about it, through talking about it, just like the karmis do, right? People who are addicts, how do they get through it? They're talking about it, talking together. You have a question, Prabhu? No. Right? So it's very important that whatever it may be, that you find a way to either engage in the Lord's service or find a way to purify it in the Lord's service. So if you can purify it, purify it. If you can engage it. But the point is, urgency is the point. Don't try to artificially subdue something or control something, thinking it will magically go away. Doesn't. It's like Prabhupada says that we Westerners are too fearless of Maya. We think we can play, we think we can compromise. Oh, it's just a little bit, it's okay. It's not okay. So this artificial control is not something we can do. We should be honest with what we have, honest of where we are in a devotional service, and therefore engage ourselves, and therefore put ourselves in the proper way to engage all those different anarthas that are there. Better, Prabhu? Thank you. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Janitai, Gaura Paramahamsa.
Paramahamsa Gaura Prabhu ki.